The darkness of space flickered with the faint glow of distant stars as the Krelithan warship Vorgath hovered on the edge of Earth's atmosphere. It was a leviathan of steel and bioorganic machinery, its jagged hull lined with ion cannons and plasma turrets. Inside, the air thrummed with the low-frequency hum of power cores and the rhythmic clanging of Krelithan soldiers marching in unison. Their leader, Supreme Warlord Exorvan, stood at the command bridge, his 6 crimson eyes locked on the swirling blue and white orb below. Another primitive world, Exorvan sneered, his mandibles clicking with disdain. Their broadcast scream of culture, art, and compassion. Soft creatures. Weak creatures. His second-in-command, General Ilrix, let out a guttural laugh. Shall we begin the purification process, Warlord? Burn their cities, crush their defenders, and claim their resources like we did with Threxerp 4. Exorvan raised a clawed hand, halting him. No. This one will be different. No planet has ever broadcast its weakness so openly. This Earth will fall faster than all the rest. I want them to see us. I want them to know terror before the end. He gestured to the control panel, and the ship's weapons charged with a low, ominous hum. The energy readings surged. The crew watched eagerly as target locks established themselves over the planet's major population centers. One by one, red dots appeared on the holographic globe. New York, Tokyo, London, Mumbai. Exorvan leaned forward, his eyes glowing with predatory delight. Open the comms, he ordered. Let them hear their end approaching. Static buzzed, then a clear channel opened. Earth's television broadcasts, internet streams, and even simple radios went silent as a singular, commanding voice echoed across every device. People of Earth, Exorvan's voice growled, deep and resonant. I am Supreme Warlord Exorvan of the Krelithan Dominion. I bring you the mercy of oblivion. Your time is over. Your world is ours. On Earth, there was panic. Crowds gathered around screens in every city, staring at the monstrous figure with its rows of teeth and gleaming eyes. Mothers pulled their children close. Soldiers gripped their rifles tighter. The world watched, breathless. But something happened that Exorvan did not expect. Laughter. At first, it was a few isolated chuckles from living rooms and street corners. Then it grew. Waves of laughter erupted across the planet. Memes and gifs of Exorvan's menacing face were edited with clown wigs and captions like, "Another Tuesday in Ohio," and "Look, another intergalactic clown auditioning for Earth's Got Talent." Live streamers mocked his speech in real time. Social media flooded with hashtags like #AlienClown and #AnotherOne. Inside the Vorgath, Exorvan's eyes narrowed. What is this sound? General Ilrix glanced at the ship's sensors, his confusion mirroring his warlord's. It appears to be laughter, Supreme Warlord. Laughter? Exorvan roared, his claws digging into the metal railing. They dare mock me? Open fire. Burn their arrogance from orbit. Yes, Warlord. Ilrix slammed his claw on the console, and the ship's cannons surged to full power. Bolts of plasma rained down on Earth's surface. But something was wrong. Instead of the usual screams of terror, human broadcasts filled with music? A pounding beat, heavy bass drops, and electronic synths echoed through Earth's airwaves. The Krelithans listened in confusion. Humans were posting videos of themselves dancing under the blue glow of the plasma fire. A trend emerged as people filmed themselves outside with the caption, "They thought we'd be scared. So we threw a party." Inside the Vorgath, Exorvan's eyes darted from screen to screen. No. Why aren't they running? Why aren't they afraid? Supreme Warlord, Ilrix stammered, it appears they are celebrating. Celebrating what? Exorvan hissed. Your arrival, Ilrix said, bewildered. Suddenly, Exorvan's confidence cracked. His breaths became shallow. No species reacts this way, he muttered. No species celebrates annihilation. Perhaps they know something we don't, Ilrix whispered, glancing nervously at the displays. Just then, the ship's internal alarms blared. The words, "Massive Energy Signature Detected," flashed red on every screen. Sensors locked on something rising from the Earth's surface. It moved fast, far too fast for any known human technology. It was the size of a skyscraper and headed directly for them. "What is that?" Exorvan barked. "Unknown warlord," Ilric said, his voice trembling. "It's on a collision course with us. Impact in 10 seconds. Evasive maneuvers. Now." Exorvan screamed. But it was too late. The object smashed into the Vorgatha's hull with the force of a meteor strike. Sirens wailed as the Krelithan crew were thrown across the bridge. Sparks erupted from consoles, and the ship's gravity flickered. Exorvan gripped the railing, his eyes wide with shock. What hit us?" he bellowed. Smoke filled the room as Ilric struggled to his feet. It's a ship, Supreme Warlord. A human ship. They launched it from their surface. It's burrowing into our hull. Boarders." Exorvan gasped. The walls of the bridge buckled inward. Metal groaned, then exploded as something punched through. Smoke and debris filled the room. Silence. Then the sound of boots on steel echoed through the haze. Heavy. Deliberate. Out of the smoke, a figure emerged. Human. Clad in black tactical armor, face obscured behind a sleek, reflective visor. Slowly, the figure raised its head. Exorvan's heart sank. Not because of the human's presence. Not because of their weapons. But because of the way they stood. Feet apart, shoulders back, absolute stillness in their posture. It was the stance of a predator. No fear. No hesitation. The human tilted their head slightly, almost as if they were disappointed. Then, with a voice that echoed like distant thunder, they spoke one word. Boo! The Krelithan bridge descended into chaos. Soldiers screamed, backing away. Plasma rifles shook in their claws. Exorvan stumbled backward, his eyes filled with horror. This is impossible, he thought. No species should be this calm. No species should look at us like prey. The human's visor glowed with the reflection of flames. Slowly, deliberately, they reached to their side and drew a long, serrated blade. Exorvan's eyes darted toward the exit. "Sound the retreat. Sound the—" He never finished his sentence. Because by the time he moved, the human was already in front of him. The bridge lights flickered once, twice, then died. The only light was the glow of the planet below. No species would forget the day humans finally snapped. Not because of the invasion, but because of what came after. The bridge of the Krelithan warship was bathed in the sharp glow of red emergency lights. Sparks crackled from broken consoles, filling the air with the acrid stench of burning circuits. Exorvan clutched his side, his breathing ragged, his 6 eyes darting in every direction. His crew lay scattered around him, some groaning in pain, others disturbingly still. The metallic clang of boots echoed louder with every step. It was slow, unhurried, deliberate. "Report." Exorvan barked, his voice laced with panic. He dragged himself upright, leaning heavily on a shattered console. "Where is the intruder?" General Ilric staggered to his feet, wiping green blood from his mandibles. His eyes were wide with something Exorvan had never seen in him before. Fear. There in the shadows, Supreme Warlord. Moving too fast. I can't track them." The clang of boots stopped. Dead silence. Every Krelithan soldier on the bridge froze, antennae raised, claws gripping their weapons tighter. "Activate thermal scans," Exorvan ordered, spitting out the taste of blood. "I want them found now." Ilrix pressed his clawed fingers against a nearby console, green blood smearing the screen. The thermal overlay flickered on, scanning every corner of the bridge. Shapes of Krelithan soldiers lit up in bright orange hues. But in the far left corner of the bridge, there was something else. A single, faint outline. Too still. Too cold. Not natural. "Found you," Ilrix hissed, baring his teeth as he raised his plasma rifle. His claw squeezed the trigger, but the figure moved. Not ran. Not dashed. Moved. The blur crossed the distance in an instant, faster than Ilrix could even aim. One moment the figure was at the far corner. The next, they were directly behind him. The sharp glint of metal caught the emergency light for a brief moment. A flash of silver. A spray of green. Ilrix's eyes widened in shock as he crumpled to the ground, a deep gash across his chest armor. He twitched once. Twice. Then he lay still. No. Exovon roared, his voice echoing through the bridge. He raised his command gauntlet, his fingers jabbing at the control pad. All units converge on my location. Full breach response. Static. No response. Command to all soldiers. Exovon's voice cracked with desperation. Do you hear me? Respond. Only silence. No backup. No reinforcements. He was alone with it now. The lights flickered again. His eyes scanned every inch of the room, searching the corners, the ceilings, the shadows. His breath came in short, sharp bursts, heart thundering in his chest. This wasn't how it was supposed to be. They were supposed to be the apex predators. They had conquered dozens of worlds. They had broken armies and shattered empires. Why was he afraid? The boots echoed again. This time, the sound came from the ceiling. Exovon's gaze snapped upward. There, crouched like a predator ready to pounce, was the human. Their armor was black as the void, blending perfectly with the dim lighting. Only their reflective visor glowed faintly, capturing the terror-stricken face of the Krelithan warlord below. What are you? Exovon's voice was hoarse, barely a whisper. The human tilted their head, just a fraction, studying him. The visor's glow made them look more like a specter than a soldier. No words were spoken, but somehow, Exovon understood. I am the consequence. The figure dropped from the ceiling like a falling star. Exovon's instincts kicked in, and he raised his plasma blaster, firing wildly. The bolts lit up the room like a storm of green fire. Shots sizzled against metal walls, some hitting control panels, sending sparks everywhere. One bolt hit the human's shoulder, or so Exovon thought, but it didn't stop them. It didn't even slow them. They hit the ground in a low crouch, one hand on the floor to balance. The glow of the emergency lights framed them like a demon rising from the depths. Stay back! Exovon shrieked, his claws scrabbling for a weapon, any weapon. He found a shard of broken metal, gripping it like a blade. His breaths came fast, chest heaving, eyes locked on the human. But the human didn't charge. They stood, slowly, their movements calm and measured. Not like prey. Not like something desperate. Like something that had already won. You don't understand. Exovon howled, his voice breaking into desperation. We had to invade. Our worlds are dying. We had no choice. He pointed the jagged metal shard at them, his claw trembling. You think you're better than us? You're not. You're just another animal fighting to survive. The human tilted their head again. For a moment, Exovon thought he saw them nod. Then they moved. Faster than sight. Faster than thought. There was no flash, no blur, only the sensation of something cold pressed against his throat. He looked down and saw the human's blade resting gently under his mandibles. It didn't cut. It didn't push. It didn't need to. The message was clear. Wait. Exovon begged, his claws raised in surrender. Mercy. Mercy. We surrender. The fleet will retreat. I swear it. The human didn't move. Didn't speak. Please. Exovon's voice cracked. His pride shattered, his arrogance gone. His eyes darted toward the wrecked bridge, the bodies of his crew scattered like broken dolls. This was supposed to be another conquest. Another trophy. Instead, it was a graveyard. You've made your point, he gasped. They'll remember this. They'll remember you. Please. Let me live. For the first time, the human moved their head, just a fraction, as if considering. The blade pressed just a bit tighter, a thin line of green blood dripping down Exorvan's neck. His breath hitched. Then, slowly, the human lowered the blade. Exorvan exhaled in relief, his body trembling uncontrollably. His claws fell to his sides as he slumped to his knees. "Thank you," he sobbed, his voice hollow. "Thank you." The human turned, stepping toward the main console of the ship. Exorvan's eyes followed, confusion mixed with dread. Wait, what are you doing?" The human's hands moved with practiced precision, fingers flying over the controls. Warnings blared as the ship's AI chimed in. Self-destruct sequence activated. Detonation in 60 seconds. Exorvan's eyes widened in horror. No, you said you'd let me live." The human didn't turn around, didn't speak. They just walked away. Calm, measured, unstoppable. Exorvan clawed at the console, desperately trying to override the countdown. His breathing became erratic. "No. This is my ship. You can't do this. You can't." 30 seconds until detonation. The human stepped over Ilrix's fallen body. Sparks rained from the ceiling as systems exploded one by one. The air grew hot. "Please," Exorvan screamed, pounding his claws on the console. "Don't leave me here. I can still." 15 seconds. The last thing Exorvan saw was the human boarding the escape pod. For a moment, just before the hatch closed, the human looked at him. No malice. No rage. Just a glance. Pity. 5 seconds. The escape pod launched. The glow of Earth's blue atmosphere framed it as it descended back to the surface. Exorvan's final thoughts were not of pride, not of conquest, only terror. No species would forget the day humans finally snapped. But it wasn't because of what they did. It was because of how little it took to break them. The escape pod drifted silently through the void, its thrusters glowing like distant stars. Inside, the humans sat motionless, helmet resting on their lap, gaze fixed on the swirling blue orb of Earth below. The glow of the planet's atmosphere bathed their face in soft hues of azure and gold. Their eyes were distant, hollow, not the look of victory, but something far heavier. Behind them, the Krelithan warship hung in orbit, its hull a battered, sparking ruin. Fires raged through its decks, plumes of smoke venting into the vacuum of space. The self-destruct countdown reached its end. 3, 2, 1. For a moment, there was stillness. Then the ship erupted in a silent flash of blinding white light. The shockwave rippled outward in slow, mesmerizing waves, fragments of metal and debris spreading like a broken constellation. The wreckage tumbled aimlessly, spinning with the weightless grace of shattered dreams. The human didn't look back. Their hands rested on their knees, fingers curling slightly with tension. No words. No movement. Just the quiet breathing of someone who had done this before. Too many times before. A voice crackled over the comms. "Commander Hale. Mission status?" Silence. "Commander? Do you copy?" The voice pressed, more urgent this time. "What's the situation up there?" Hale blinked, slowly. His gaze shifted from the Earth below to his own reflection in the glassy visor of his helmet. His own eyes stared back at him, weary and distant, framed by stubble and exhaustion. "Hostiles neutralized," he said at last, his voice low and calm, but it carried the weight of a man far older than his years. "They won't be coming back." "Understood, Commander," the voice replied, but there was a pause, a hesitation, as if the operator had heard more in Hale's words than he was meant to. "Return trajectory is locked in. We'll have you home in 10. "Copy," Hale replied, his eyes still locked on his own reflection. His fingers drummed on his leg, slow, rhythmic, like the ticking of a clock. He sat like that for a while, watching himself, watching Earth spin slowly in the distance. His mind drifted back to the Krelithan warlord, Exorvan, kneeling on that bridge, begging for mercy. He could still hear the warlord's voice, still see the look of betrayal in his eyes when the self-destruct was activated. "Please, don't leave me here." He closed his eyes, leaning his head back against the cold wall of the escape pod. They always beg. Every species. Every warlord. Every time. The human race had been patient for so long. Too long. Peace treaties. Negotiations. Concessions. Warnings. Every enemy race had tested those limits, believing the humans were weak, too compassionate, too forgiving. They thought humanity's patience was endless. They were wrong. He breathed in deeply, filling his lungs with the sterile air of the pod. One battle ends. Another begins. It wasn't just the aliens who underestimated humanity's patience. It was humanity itself. They believed they could stay kind forever. That mercy would be enough. But mercy was a finite resource, like air, like fuel. Eventually, it runs out. His eyes opened. No more reflection. No more ghosts. The comms crackled again. "Hail, you're clear for re-entry. Welcome home, soldier." Home. He let out a slow breath, his fingers steadying. Earth's clouds swirled like strokes of white paint on a blue canvas. Home. He should feel something, relief, joy, peace. But all he felt was the weight of it all pressing down on his chest. The faces of every warlord he'd ever left behind still lingered in his mind. Not their bodies. Just their faces. "Copy," he muttered, his voice barely more than a breath. The pod began its descent, the hull shuddering as it hit the edge of the atmosphere. Fire bloomed around him, streaks of orange flame licking at the glass like an inferno trying to get in. The turbulence rocked him in his seat, but he didn't flinch. He'd seen worse storms. On the other side of the flames, Earth awaited. Peaceful. Quiet. Familiar. But Commander Hale knew the truth. It wouldn't last. Not anymore. The Krelithan had learned the truth the hard way, as had the Grax, the Velzar, and every other race that tried to claim Earth as just another target. Every one of them had been warned. Every one of them had been given the chance to walk away. None of them listened. They always thought they could break the humans. But humans don't break. They bend. They endure. Until, one day, they don't. The escape pod's thrusters fired, slowing his descent as the flames disappeared, replaced by the soft glow of blue skies. Clouds parted like curtains, revealing the green and gold of continents below. It should have felt beautiful. It should have felt like peace. But Hale had seen too much. Done too much. The day humans snapped, it wasn't with a roar. It wasn't a war cry. It was the slow, deliberate pull of a lever. The steady press of a button. Not anger. Calculation. And that terrified the galaxy far more than any battle fleet ever could. The pod shuddered as it approached the landing zone, the soft thump of landing struts engaging. A hiss of pressurized air signaled the seals breaking, fresh air rushing in. Bright sunlight poured into the cramped space, warm and golden. Commander Hale sat still for a moment longer, letting the light wash over him. He breathed it in slowly, eyes half closed. His hands unfastened the harness straps with mechanical precision. No rush. No urgency. When the hatch opened, the cool breeze hit his face, carrying the scent of dirt and trees. Earth's smell. His smell. It had been a long deployment. On the ridge ahead, a line of silhouettes waited for him. Men and women in uniform, backs straight, eyes forward. His squad. His team. The ones who'd fought with him. The ones who'd stayed behind. "Welcome back, Commander," one of them said, stepping forward with a crisp salute. Hale returned it with a nod, stepping down from the pod with the weight of the world still on his shoulders. "Any news?" Hale asked, scanning the faces of his squad. "Quiet so far," the soldier replied. "But the Council's already talking. Word is, they're afraid." "Good," Hale said softly, eyes still on the treeline ahead. "They should be." The squad exchanged glances but said nothing. They didn't have to. They all knew. Today, there were no more warnings. No more second chances. The rest of the galaxy would remember what happened today. The wreckage of the Krelithan warship would be a monument of sorts, its fragments orbiting the void as a silent reminder. Don't push humanity too far. No species would forget the day humans finally snapped. Not because of the destruction, but because it was so quiet.